Welcome. In this revision session, we're going to look at Component 3, Listening and Analysing, Question 4. Now, if you've missed any of these sessions, they're all here on YouTube and you can view them. If you like what you're seeing, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel, and we'll try and produce a lot more of these videos. So we're still looking at section A of this particular exam paper. So if you remember, section A is made up of 4 questions and it's worth 40 marks. So each question is worth 10 marks each. So this is the last question for section A, and it does get slightly more in depth. So you will need to have a broad range of knowledge for this one. So once again, as per all the questions, they can be taken from any area of the music text specification. In this particular question, you're more likely to get long answer questions, and you're going to start seeing essay questions. Very short mark-based essay questions, both of which need you to make a point and then give an explanation to get the full marks. So for instance, if the question is worth 4 marks or 6 marks, you'd need to give, for the 6-mark question, 3 points and then an explanation for each of those points to get the full marks to be awarded. One thing I will say to my students is make sure that you are clear and concise with your answer. Do not waffle. Look at the quality of your words. Look at the quality and neatness of your writing. Look at the structure of your essay. If you have the opportunity to get rough paper, you can start making notes at this point, and then you can formulate those notes into your full answer. So once again, we have the sample specification here. So this first one is Fatboy Slim track, Praise You, and for question 4, A and B is using this track. So what you need to know first is that this one is obviously going to be some kind of sampling question. It's also looking at a bit of lo-fi. So it says here, Fatboy Slim makes use of a 12-bit hardware sampling equipment with limited RAM. Explain 3 ways that the equipment contributes to the sonic quality of the recording. So when you're looking at sonic qualities, you are really looking at the frequency range, you're looking at the dynamic range, you're looking at the stereo field, and you could also be looking at the depth of field. For this one, probably not so much with the depth of field. So once again, you need to give 3 points and then you need to give an example for each of those points to get the full marks here. So taken straight from the specification mark scheme, here's a couple of the answers. So it says here, to get 1 point, you would write something like short samples are taken from other recordings. So that would get you 1 mark. If you wanted to get the explanation for that, you could say something like which sounds retro. Another point, sample stutters or chomp samples, that would be the point, and then you could say something like add rhythmic glitch effects, and then you'd have another point and another example to get the full marks. So still looking at the same Fatboy Slim format, now moves on to looking at consumer formats and mastering a little bit. So it says, in addition to this digital CD version, this song was released on vinyl. Explain 2 considerations the producer would have to make when preparing a mix and master for vinyl. So you're going to need to know your mastering techniques here. So things that you're definitely going to need to know about mastering is the use of compression, the use of DEs, the use of EQ, once again maybe reverb, but actually if you just stuck with compression, EQ, bit of DEs, you'd probably be okay. So here are the points here. So once again, you have to make a point and then you have to make an explanation. So it says straight from the mark scheme, use the DEs or EQ to reduce sibilance on the vocal to avoid distortion on vinyl. Another point then, use a high pass filter to reduce low frequency content or rumbles. And then the actual explanation would be to avoid the needle skipping. You could also make the point that adjust the amount of mixed compression, and then the explanation for this would be to achieve the correct master level or the master volume. So in preparation for question 4 then, things that you're going to need to look at once again, the history and development is coming up big, very big. So rather than looking at the analog this time, they're then looking at how analog versus digital, or how analog compares to digital, or how digital techniques have been used. So when it comes to sampling, you're looking very much at the digital techniques. So you could look at digital versus analog. You also need to practice and plan answering essay-based questions. So this idea of giving a point and then giving an explanation to get the full marks is going to be really, really important. And then finally, look at mastering techniques for various broadcast types and consumer formats. So in the next one, we're going to look at section B, and we're going to look at question 5. So I will see you tomorrow in the next one.